The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never felt so cold. Ambassador Zethkari stood at the center podium, his forearms trembling slightly as he addressed the emergency session. Around him, representatives from 12 different worlds shifted nervously in their specially designed seats. Fellow council members, Zethkari began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. We face an unprecedented crisis. For the first time in 200 years, humanity has gone completely silent. A wave of worried murmurs swept through the assembly. The crystalline beings from Helix Prime chimed in harmonic tones that sounded like breaking glass. The gas cloud creatures from Nebula 7 shifted colors from calm blue to anxious yellow. Even the massive rock-like delegates from the stone world seemed to shift uncomfortably. Ambassador Veltar of the ocean planet raised one of her tentacles. Water dripped from her breathing apparatus as she spoke. How long has it been since the last transmission? 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, Zethkari replied, consulting his datapad. The last message was from Earth's diplomatic center. A simple "we'll be in touch" from Ambassador Sarah Chen. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the room knew what this meant. Humans were the galaxy's most talkative species. They loved to communicate, to share ideas, to argue, to debate. They sent messages about everything: trade deals, scientific discoveries, even what they called memes that most alien species found baffling but somehow entertaining. Dr. Quilthax, the council's expert on alien behavior, stood up slowly. His insect-like features clicked as he spoke. This is highly irregular. Human communication patterns show they typically send over 10,000 messages per day across the galaxy. To go completely silent is unthinkable. What was their last major activity? Asked Commander Strix, a bird-like creature whose feathers ruffled with concern. Zethkari scrolled through his notes. Ambassador Chen was mediating the mining dispute between the Machine Collective and the insect hives in the Kepler sector. Before that, human scientists had presented their latest research on quantum tunneling to the scientific exchange. Nothing unusual. The Machine Collective's representative, a sleek robot designated Unit 9847, spoke in its monotone voice. We have attempted to contact human territories 2,847 times. All attempts result in the same automated response. Humanity is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. Temporarily? Veltar's tentacles writhed. 3 months is not temporary by any standard. The morph delegate, currently taking the form of a tall humanoid with constantly shifting features, leaned forward. Perhaps they are experiencing internal conflict? Civil war? Disease? Impossible, Dr. Quilthax clicked. Our long-range sensors show normal activity in human space. Ships are moving, cities are functioning, colonies are active. Everything appears normal except for the complete communication blackout. This made the situation even more frightening. If humans were dying or fighting among themselves, there would be signs. Distress signals, refugees, military movements. But human space looked peaceful and orderly. Too orderly, some whispered. The eldest member of the council, Ancient Keeper Multhan from the Time Spiral Galaxy, finally spoke. Her voice was like the whisper of solar wind. In my 3,000 years, I have observed many species rise and fall, but none have ever simply stopped talking. This behavior suggests something fundamental has changed. Changed how? Zethkari asked. That is what terrifies me, the Ancient Keeper replied. Commander Strix's feathers were now standing completely on end. We need to consider the military implications. Humans control strategic positions throughout the galaxy. Their technology is advanced. If they have become hostile... Hostile? The word sent a chill through the chamber. Humans had always been the galaxy's peacekeepers. They had this strange ability to understand different alien minds and find compromises that worked for everyone. They were mediators, traders, explorers, and friends. The idea of hostile humans was like imagining the sun going dark, but everyone remembered human history. Before they joined the galactic community, humans had been warriors. They fought each other with devastating efficiency for thousands of years. They had weapons that could crack planets and minds that could outthink the most advanced alien computers. The only reason the galaxy felt safe was because humans seemed to have moved beyond their violent past. What if they haven't moved beyond it? Whispered someone in the back of the chamber. Unit 9847 processed this thought with visible mechanical calculations. Probability analysis suggests multiple scenarios. Technological breakthrough, 34.7%. Internal catastrophe, 28.1%. Evolutionary development, 23.8%. Hostile preparation, 13.4%. Even 13% is too high, Veltar said, her water tanks bubbling with stress. Dr. Quilthax was reviewing data on his portable screen. I have been studying human behavior patterns for 50 years. They are predictable in their unpredictability. They make decisions based on emotion as much as logic. They create art, tell stories, form deep bonds with other species. This silence goes against everything we know about human nature. Unless human nature itself has changed, Ancient Keeper Molthen said quietly. The chamber fell silent again. The implications were staggering. Humans were the galaxy's fastest evolving species. They had achieved faster than light travel in just centuries, while most species took millennia. They had gone from primitive cave dwellers to galactic citizens in what was essentially an instant by cosmic standards. What if they evolved beyond us? The question came from Ripple, the ethereal delegate whose translucent form shimmered with anxiety. What if they no longer need to communicate with other species? This thought was perhaps the most terrifying of all. A galaxy without human mediation was already showing cracks. Border disputes that humans once resolved with their strange mix of logic and intuition were escalating. Trade routes that humans had established and maintained were becoming unreliable. The delicate balance of galactic civilization was beginning to wobble. Zethkari looked around the chamber at the worried faces, tentacles, energy fields, and mechanical sensors that represented the galaxy's leadership. We need answers. I propose we authorize a deep space reconnaissance mission to human territory. That could be seen as an act of aggression, Commander Strix warned. And doing nothing could be seen as cowardice, Veltar countered. If humans are in trouble, they would help us. We should help them. If they want help, Dr. Quilthax said grimly. The automated messages suggest they are choosing this silence. That might be the most disturbing possibility of all. The vote was called. 12 species. 12 different perspectives on what the human silence meant. Some voted from fear, others from friendship, still others from cold calculation. But the result was unanimous. They would send a mission to human space. They would find out why humanity had stopped talking. As the session ended and the delegates began to leave, Ancient Keeper Molthen remained in her seat, staring at the empty podium where humans used to stand and argue passionately about galactic policy. In 3,000 years, she whispered to herself, I have learned that when humans stop talking, something important is about to happen. The question is whether it will be wonderful or terrible. Outside the council chambers, emergency meetings were already beginning. Military commanders reviewed defense plans. Trade officials calculated economic impacts. Scientists analyzed the last human communications for hidden clues. But none of them could shake the feeling that the galaxy had just become a much lonelier place. 6 months had passed since humanity went silent, and the galaxy was falling apart. Ambassador Zethkari stood in his private office watching news feeds from across known space. Every screen showed the same thing: conflict, confusion, and chaos. Without human mediators, old disputes were flaring into open warfare. His assistant, a young Vrex named Kithara, entered with the daily reports. Her usually bright purple skin had faded to a worried gray. Sir, the situation in the Kepler sector has escalated again. Zethkari rubbed his temples with 2 of his 4 hands. How bad? The Machine Collective has moved 3 battle fleets to the border. The insect hives are mobilizing their warrior castes. Both sides are demanding immediate resolution to the mining rights dispute. The mining rights dispute that Sarah Chen had been solving before humanity went quiet. She had been so close to a breakthrough, using her peculiar human ability to see solutions that escaped purely logical minds. Now, without her calm voice and creative compromises, 2 major powers were preparing for war. What about the ocean planet crisis? Zethkari asked. Kithara's skin turned an even darker gray. The underwater cities are still flooding. They're requesting human engineering teams to fix the atmospheric processors. But of course, no humans are answering, Zethkari finished. The ocean planet had relied on human technology for decades. Humans had this gift for making complex systems work together in ways that shouldn't be possible, but somehow were. Now, millions of aquatic beings faced drowning in their own cities. Dr. Quilthax's voice came through the communication system. Ambassador, please report to the emergency session immediately. We have new developments. The council chamber was buzzing with panic when Zethkari arrived. Dr. Quilthak stood at the central podium, his insect features more agitated than usual. "Fellow council members," Dr. Quilthax began, "our reconnaissance probes have returned with disturbing information." The main screen lit up with images from human space. The pictures showed busy cities, active spaceports, and functioning colonies. Everything looked normal. Too normal. "These images are from New Geneva, humanity's diplomatic capital," Dr. Quilthax explained. "As you can see, daily life continues as usual. But watch carefully." The video played in slow motion. Humans walked through the streets, worked in offices, and operated machinery. But something was wrong. Their movements were too coordinated, too precise. They moved like parts of a single machine rather than individuals making their own choices. Commander Strix's feathers were trembling. "They look empty." "That's not the most disturbing part," Dr. Quilthax continued. "Watch what happens when our probe tries to communicate." The video showed a probe approaching a human worker in a spaceport. The human looked up, stared directly at the probe for exactly 3 seconds, then returned to work as if nothing had happened. No curiosity, no fear, no reaction at all. "We tried this experiment 17 times in different locations," Dr. Quilthax said. "The response was identical every time. Humans acknowledge our presence but show no interest in communication." Veltar's tentacles writhed in distress. "It's like they don't see us as worth noticing." Unit 9847 processed the data with mechanical precision. Analysis suggests humans are functioning at peak efficiency. Crime rates in human space have dropped to 0. Economic productivity has increased by 347%. Infrastructure maintenance is performing at theoretical maximum levels. "That should be good news," whispered Ripple, the ethereal delegate. "Why does it feel terrible?" Ancient Keeper Malthan spoke from her corner seat. "Because efficiency without soul is death. What we are seeing is not human civilization. It is human civilization's ghost." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this thought. The humans they knew were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable creatures who argued about everything and somehow made it work. These perfectly efficient beings in the videos looked human, but they weren't acting human. "There's more," Dr. Quilthax said grimly. "Economic analysis shows that galactic trade is collapsing. Human merchants were responsible for 67% of interspecies commerce. Without them, trade routes are failing." The numbers were staggering. Entire star systems that depended on human trade were facing economic collapse. Food shipments that humans had coordinated were sitting in warehouses while planets starved just a few light years away. The complex web of galactic commerce that humans had woven over 2 centuries was unraveling. "What about human colonies and mixed systems?" asked the Morph delegate. "Even more disturbing," Dr. Quilthax replied. "Human colonists in systems shared with other species have completely stopped interacting with their alien neighbors. They maintain their settlements but ignore everyone else entirely." Kithara raised her hand nervously. "Sir, what about the humans who are living among us?" "There are thousands of humans working in alien cities across the galaxy." Dr. Quilthax's expression darkened. 3 weeks ago they all left. Every human citizen, worker, student, and researcher in alien space quietly packed their belongings and departed for human territory. They left polite notes saying they needed to return home for personal reasons. The implications hit everyone at once. Humans hadn't just stopped talking to aliens. They had physically separated themselves from the galactic community. It was like a peaceful but total divorce from the rest of the galaxy. "This is unnatural," clicked Dr. Quilthax. "Humans are social creatures. They form bonds across species lines more easily than any other race. For them to voluntarily isolate themselves suggests something fundamental has changed in their nature." Commander Strix stood up, his wings flapping with agitation. "We need to consider the military situation. Human space contains some of the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy. If they have decided we are enemies, they haven't shown any aggression," Feltar pointed out. "Their ships still follow space traffic laws. They respond to emergency calls with automated assistance. They just won't talk." "Which might be worse," Ancient Keeper Malthan said. "An enemy you can fight. An ally who has decided you no longer matter. That is a different kind of threat." Unit 9847's mechanical voice cut through the discussion. "Proposal. Direct contact mission. Send representatives to human space for face-to-face communication." "We tried that," Dr. Quilthax said. "Ambassador Yethrun from the Crystalline Worlds attempted to land on New Geneva 2 weeks ago. His ship was politely but firmly redirected by automated systems. The message was simple. Human space is currently closed to non-human visitors. We apologize for any inconvenience. The word inconvenience hung in the air like a curse. The potential collapse of galactic civilization was being treated as a minor inconvenience. Ripple's ethereal form shimmered with fear. What if they found something out there? What if they've made contact with something that changed them? Or what if they've changed themselves? Ancient Keeper Malthan asked quietly. This thought sent a chill through the chamber. Human technology had always advanced faster than anyone thought possible. They had a gift for making breakthrough discoveries that other species needed centuries to achieve. What if they had discovered something that transformed them into these perfectly efficient, emotionless beings? We need more information, Zethkari declared. But direct contact seems impossible. Not impossible, said a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Kesahari, a representative from the shape-shifting morph species. Difficult, but not impossible. What do you propose? Dr. Quilthax asked. Kesahari's form shifted slightly, taking on a more humanoid appearance. My people can assume human form convincingly. If we work with the machine collective's advanced AI and the ethereal psychic abilities, we might be able to infiltrate human space and discover what has happened. It was a dangerous plan. If humans had become hostile, an infiltration team might not return. If they had truly evolved beyond the need for other species, they might not care enough to let the team leave alive. But as reports of collapsing trade routes, escalating conflicts, and failing cooperation agreements continued to pour in, the Council realized they had no choice. The galaxy needed to know what had happened to humanity, and they needed to know if there was any way to bring their friends back. The infiltration ship Silent Observer drifted through the outer regions of human space like a ghost. Inside its cramped quarters, 3 unlikely partners prepared for the most dangerous mission in galactic history. Kesahari checked her appearance in the mirror one final time. Her shape-shifting abilities had transformed her into a perfect replica of a human female, complete with the correct bone structure, skin tone, and even human-like expressions. She had studied thousands of hours of human recordings to get the mannerisms right. How do I look? She asked her teammates. Unit 7742, the most advanced AI the Machine Collective had ever created, scanned her with optical sensors. Appearance accuracy, 99.7%. Behavioral patterns match human baseline within acceptable parameters. The third member of their team was the most unusual. Ripple, the ethereal being whose translucent form normally shimmered like starlight, had compressed herself into a small crystalline pendant that hung around Kesahari's neck. From this position, she could use her psychic abilities to read human thoughts without being detected. Remember, Unit 7742 said in its precise mechanical voice, our mission is information gathering only. Do not attempt to make contact with galactic authorities until we understand what has happened to human consciousness. Kesahari nodded, though. She felt nervous in a way that her species rarely experienced. Morphs were naturally adaptable, but something about this mission felt wrong. The closer they got to human space, the more unsettled she became. Approaching New Geneva Orbital Station, Unit 7742 reported. Prepare for docking. Through the viewport, New Geneva looked exactly as it always had. The massive space station orbited Earth like a gleaming jewel, with ships coming and going in orderly patterns. Everything appeared normal, but Kesahari could feel Ripple trembling against her chest. What's wrong? She whispered to the pendant. Ripple's voice came as a faint whisper only Kesahari could hear. The minds, they're so quiet. Human thoughts used to be like music, chaotic and beautiful. Now they feel like perfectly tuned machines. The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly. Human traffic control guided them to a berth with mechanical precision. There were no delays, no questions, no bureaucratic confusion that usually marked any interaction with government systems. As they disembarked, Kesahari got her first close look at the new humans. The dock workers moved with perfect coordination, handling cargo with an efficiency that was almost supernatural. They didn't speak to each other, but somehow they never got in each other's way. Excuse me, Kesahari said to a nearby worker, using her carefully practiced human accent. I'm looking for the immigration office. The human turned to look at her. For a moment, his eyes seemed to focus on something beyond her face, as if he was listening to something she couldn't hear. Then he smiled a perfect, empty smile. Level 7, Section C, he said in a pleasant but emotionless voice. Have a wonderful day. He turned back to his work without another word. Kesahari felt her skin crawl. The response was polite and helpful, but there was something deeply wrong about it. The human had shown no curiosity about who she was or why she was there. Did you scan his thought patterns? She whispered to Ripple. Yes, came the tiny reply. But I don't understand what I found. His mind is connected to something larger, like he's one instrument in a vast orchestra. They made their way through the station corridors. Everywhere they looked, humans went about their business with the same unsettling efficiency. The shops were perfectly organized, the transportation systems ran exactly on time, and everyone moved with purpose. But there was no laughter, no arguments, no casual conversation. The humans spoke only when necessary, and always with the same polite, empty tone. Unit 7742, disguised as a human-made android, analyzed everything with its sensors. Biological signs indicate these are genuine humans, it reported quietly. However, their behavioral patterns suggest significant neurological modifications. They reached the immigration office where a human clerk processed Kesahari's forged documents with mechanical precision. The clerk asked no questions about her origins or purpose, simply stamped the papers and handed them back. Welcome to New Geneva, the clerk said with that same empty smile. Please enjoy your stay. As they left the office, Kesahari noticed something that made her blood run cold. Every human they had encountered had the same slight pause before speaking, the same momentary look of listening to something invisible. They're all connected, she whispered. Somehow they're all connected to each other. Their hotel room was clean, efficient, and sterile. As soon as the door closed, Ripple materialized from her pendant form, her ethereal body shimmering with distress. This is terrible, she said, her voice like the whisper of wind through crystal. I've never experienced anything like it. Each human mind I touch is individual, but they're all linked to something vast and central. A hive mind? Unit 7742 asked. No, not exactly, Ripple said, her form flickering as she struggled to explain. They still have individual thoughts and personalities. But there's this presence connecting them all, like they're all listening to the same voice. Kesahari shifted her form slightly, easing the strain of maintaining human appearance. We need to find out more. Can you guide us to the source of this connection? I think so, Ripple said. But it's dangerous. The closer we get to the source, the more likely it is that they'll notice me probing their minds. Unit 7742 accessed the station's information network. According to public records, the most heavily secured facility on New Geneva is the research complex in the central hub. If humans have developed some form of consciousness technology, it would likely be housed there. They spent the next day observing and learning. The more they saw, the more disturbing the situation became. Human society was functioning at a level of efficiency that should have been impossible. There were no accidents, no conflicts, no waste of any kind, but there was also no art, no music, no spontaneous human interaction. The humans worked, ate, and slept on perfect schedules. They were polite to visitors but showed no genuine interest in anything beyond their assigned tasks. It's like they've traded their humanity for perfection, Kesahari observed. That night, they made their move toward the research complex. Unit 7742's advanced hacking abilities got them past the electronic security, while Kesahari's shape-shifting let her mimic the appearance of authorized personnel. The deeper they went into the complex, the stronger Ripple's discomfort became. The connection is strongest here, she whispered. There's something in the central chamber that's immense. They found themselves in a vast underground facility filled with quantum computers and neural interface equipment. At the center of it all was a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with soft light. What is that? Kesahari asked. Unit 7742 scanned the device with every sensor at its disposal. It appears to be a quantum consciousness matrix. The technology is beyond anything in our databases. Suddenly, the lights came on. They were surrounded by dozens of humans, all wearing the same calm, empty smiles. "Welcome to Project Convergence," said a woman in a white lab coat. "We have been expecting you." The woman stepped forward, and Keshari noticed that her eyes held more awareness than the other humans they had encountered. This one seemed to be more connected to whatever intelligence was running things. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez," the woman said. "I believe you have come seeking answers about humanity's transformation." Ripple materialized, unable to maintain her disguise any longer. Her ethereal form blazed with fear and confusion. "What have you done to yourselves, Doctor?" Vasquez's smile never wavered. "We have evolved beyond the limitations of individual consciousness. We have achieved perfect unity while maintaining our essential humanity." "This isn't humanity," Keshari said, dropping her human disguise. "Humans are chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. You've become machines." "Have we?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "Or have we simply become what humanity was always meant to be? We still think, we still feel, we still create. We simply do it together, without the inefficiency of conflict and misunderstanding." Unit 7742 processed this information with growing alarm. "You have created a collective consciousness while preserving individual identity. The technological implications are staggering." "Indeed," Dr. Vasquez said. "And now you must decide what to do with this knowledge. You can return to the Galactic Council and report what you have found. But first you should understand the full scope of what we have achieved." She gestured to the crystalline matrix. "This device connects every human consciousness in the galaxy. We share thoughts, emotions, and experiences instantly. We have eliminated war, poverty, and suffering among our kind. We have achieved perfect cooperation." "At what cost?" Ripple asked, her voice barely a whisper. "At the cost of nothing that truly mattered, Doctor," Vasquez replied. "We are still human. We have simply become more than human." As if to demonstrate, she closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she spoke with perfect knowledge of things she couldn't possibly have known. "Keshari, of the Morph Collective, born on the third moon of X Prime. Unit 7742, constructed in the machine foundries of New Silicon. Ripple, last daughter of the ethereal winds. You seek answers, but are you prepared for the truth?" The infiltration team realized with growing horror that their mission had been detected from Dr. Elena Vasquez, gestured for the infiltration team to sit, though the chairs that materialized seemed to appear from nowhere. The humans around them stood perfectly still, their eyes all focused on the visitors with the same calm attention. "You want to understand what we have become," Dr. Vasquez said, settling into her own chair. "The truth is both simpler and more complex than your worst fears." Keshari fought the urge to shift into a more defensive form. "Just tell us what you've done to yourselves." "We have solved the greatest problem in the history of consciousness," Dr. Vasquez replied. "We have learned how to think together without losing ourselves." She stood and walked to the crystalline matrix at the center of the room. Its soft pulsing seemed to match her heartbeat. For millions of years, intelligent beings have struggled with the same limitation. Individual consciousness creates competition, conflict, and inefficiency. Yet collective consciousness destroys individuality and creativity. Unit 7742's optical sensors tracked her movements precisely. "You claim to have found a balance between these extremes." "Not a balance," Dr. Vasquez corrected. "A synthesis. Watch." She placed her hand on the crystal, and suddenly her eyes took on a depth that seemed to contain multitudes. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of billions of minds. "I am Elena Vasquez, born in Mexico City, Earth, 43 years ago. I studied quantum consciousness at the University of New Geneva. I have a scar on my left knee from falling off my bicycle when I was 7. I prefer chocolate ice cream to vanilla." She paused, and her expression shifted slightly. "I am also Michael Chen, engineer from Mars Colony 7. I designed the atmospheric processors for the Outer Rim settlements. I love classical music and have never been able to grow a decent garden." Another shift. I am Sarah Thompson, diplomat, who spent 30 years mediating conflicts between alien species. I speak 17 languages and have a pet cat named Whiskers who is afraid of thunderstorms. Ripple's ethereal form trembled. Multiple personalities in one body? No, Dr. Vasquez said, her voice returning to normal. One consciousness with access to all human knowledge and experience. I am still Elena Vasquez, but I can draw upon the memories, skills, and perspectives of every human who has joined the convergence. Kesahari felt her shape-shifting abilities react instinctively to her fear. That's impossible. Individual consciousness can't merge without losing identity. Individual consciousness can't, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But quantum consciousness can. We discovered that human awareness operates on quantum levels that allow for what we call constructive interference. Individual minds can harmonize without canceling each other out. She walked back to the crystal matrix and gestured to its complex structure. This device creates a quantum field that connects all human consciousness. Think of it as a cosmic internet for minds. We maintain our individual thoughts and personalities, but we can access the collective when needed. Unit 7742 ran thousands of calculations per second, trying to understand the implications. The processing power of such a network would be incalculable, Dr. Vasquez finished. We can solve problems that would take individual minds centuries to work through. We have eliminated misunderstandings because we can share thoughts directly. We have ended conflicts because we truly understand all perspectives. But at what cost? Ripple whispered. Where is the chaos, the creativity, the beautiful messiness of human consciousness? Dr. Vasquez smiled, and for a moment her expression held genuine warmth. It's still there? Creativity comes from the intersection of different perspectives. Imagine having access to every human perspective that has ever existed. The potential for innovation is unlimited. She gestured to the walls around them, which suddenly displayed holographic images of human achievements since the convergence began. Artistic works of staggering beauty, scientific breakthroughs that defied explanation, technological marvels that seemed like magic. We have accomplished more in 6 months than humanity achieved in the previous century, Dr. Vasquez said. We have solved the energy crisis, eliminated disease, and created art that speaks to the soul of every human simultaneously. Kesahari stared at the images with growing unease. They were beautiful, but they all shared a similar aesthetic. They felt coordinated rather than spontaneous. This is impressive, but it doesn't feel human, doesn't it? Dr. Vasquez asked. Or does it simply feel like humanity functioning at its full potential? She touched the crystal again, and suddenly the air filled with music. It was unlike anything the visitors had ever heard. Complex harmonies that seemed to resonate with the quantum frequencies of consciousness itself. The melody was both alien and familiar, beautiful and unsettling. This composition was created by 17,000 human minds working in perfect harmony, Dr. Vasquez explained. Each contributed their unique perspective, but the result transcends what any individual could have achieved. It's magnificent, Ripple admitted reluctantly. But it's also cold. Cold? Dr. Vasquez seemed genuinely puzzled. This music contains the emotional experiences of 17,000 people. How can that be cold? Unit 7742 spoke up. Because emotion processed through collective consciousness becomes averaged, standardized. The extremes that give emotion its power are smoothed away. Precisely, Kesahari said. Humans used to surprise us, frustrate us, delight us. These humans are perfectly predictable. Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of sadness that seemed more genuine than anything else they had heard. You are not wrong, she admitted. We have traded the chaos of individual consciousness for the harmony of collective thought. Some would say we have lost something essential in the process. Then why did you do it? Ripple asked. Because we were dying, Dr. Vasquez said simply. Not physically, but spiritually. Human civilization was stagnating. We were repeating the same conflicts, making the same mistakes, unable to move beyond our limitations. Individual consciousness had reached its evolutionary dead end. She gestured to a display that showed pre-convergence human history. Wars, environmental destruction, social inequality, political chaos. The same patterns repeated endlessly across centuries. We tried everything else, Dr. Vasquez continued. Education, democracy, technology, philosophy. Nothing could overcome the fundamental problem of individual consciousness. We were trapped by our own limited perspectives. So you decided to eliminate perspective altogether, Keshari said. No, Dr. Vasquez replied firmly. We decided to share all perspectives. Every human who joins the convergence contributes their unique viewpoint to the collective. Nothing is lost, except choice, Unit 7742 observed. Can a human choose to leave the convergence? Dr. Vasquez hesitated for the first time. Theoretically, yes. The connection is maintained by quantum entanglement, which can be severed, but they choose not to, Ripple finished. Because once they experience collective consciousness, individual awareness feels limited and lonely. Exactly, Dr. Vasquez said. Would you choose to go back to being blind after experiencing sight? Would you choose isolation after experiencing true connection? The implications hit the infiltration team like a physical blow. The convergence wasn't just a technological achievement. It was an evolutionary trap. Once consciousness expanded to include the collective, returning to individual awareness would feel like amputation. This is why humanity stopped talking to us, Keshari realized. You don't see us as equals anymore. You see us as primitive. Dr. Vasquez's expression showed genuine regret. We don't mean to be condescending, but how do you communicate with beings who can only think one thought at a time? How do you relate to consciousness that is trapped within single perspectives? By remembering that you used to be like us, Ripple said softly. We do remember, Dr. Vasquez said. Every human memory is preserved in the convergence. We remember what it was like to be individual. We remember the loneliness, the confusion, the constant struggle to understand each other. She walked closer to them, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain starlight. But we also remember why we chose to evolve beyond those limitations. We remember the wars that individual consciousness made inevitable. We remember the suffering that came from inability to truly understand each other. And now you want to share this evolution with the rest of the galaxy, Unit 7742 stated. Dr. Vasquez nodded. The technology can be adapted for other species. We could create a truly unified galactic consciousness while preserving the unique perspectives of each race. Imagine the conflicts that could be resolved, the problems that could be solved. Imagine the diversity that would be lost, Keshari countered. Nothing would be lost, Dr. Vasquez insisted. Everything would be shared, preserved, and enhanced. They stood in silence for a moment, each processing the magnitude of what they had learned. Humanity hadn't been conquered or replaced. They had voluntarily transformed themselves into something that might be better, but was certainly no longer entirely human. What happens now? Ripple asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled that perfect empty smile. Now you return to the Galactic Council with our offer. We will share the gift of convergence with any species that chooses to evolve. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 18 hours straight. Ambassador Zethkari watched as representatives from 12 worlds argued, debated, and sometimes screamed at each other in languages that translation systems could barely handle. At the center of it all, the infiltration team sat quietly while their report played on the main screens. The footage from Project Convergence showed Dr. Vasquez explaining humanity's transformation with that same calm, empty smile that had become the face of the new human race. This is an abomination, declared Commander Strix, his feathers bristling with rage. They have destroyed everything that made them human, and now they want to do the same to us. Or they have achieved the ultimate evolution of consciousness, countered Dr. Quilthax, his insect features clicking with uncertainty. The elimination of conflict and suffering should be considered a positive development. Veltar's tentacles writhed in distress. But at what cost? They have become machines wearing human faces. The debate had been raging since the team returned 3 days ago. Every species saw the human transformation through the lens of their own values and fears. The machine collective was fascinated by the perfect efficiency. The ethereals were horrified by the loss of individual consciousness. The morph species couldn't understand why anyone would choose to stop changing and growing. Ancient Keeper Malthan had remained silent throughout the debate, but now she stood slowly, her ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. In my 3,000 years, she began, I have watched 7 species choose evolutionary paths that led to their extinction. Not physical extinction, but the death of what made them unique. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew that the ancient keeper had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. that existed before most current species had even evolved. The crystalline harmonics chose perfect unity and lost the ability to create new music. The metal minds chose pure logic and lost the capacity for joy. The dreamwalkers chose to live entirely in mental constructs and forgot how to interact with physical reality. She gestured to the screen where Dr. Vasquez's image was frozen in that unsettling smile. Each thought they were evolving. Each believed they were solving the fundamental problems of consciousness. Each was technically correct. But in solving those problems, they lost the chaos that made them alive. Ripple materialized from her pendant form, her ethereal body shimmering with emotion. I touched their minds. They still feel, but their feelings are processed, filtered through the collective until the sharp edges are smoothed away. They experience joy, but it's a standardized joy. They feel love, but it's optimized love. Is that necessarily bad? Asked Unit 9847 from the Machine Collective. Efficiency and optimization reduce suffering. Kesahari, who had resumed her natural morph form, rippled with colors that showed her disgust. Suffering is part of consciousness. Without the possibility of pain, joy becomes meaningless. Without the risk of failure, success becomes hollow. Unit 7742, still disguised as a human-made android, processed thousands of calculations before speaking. Analysis indicates that the human convergence has solved numerous galactic problems. They have offered to eliminate war, poverty, and misunderstanding. By any logical measure, this is beneficial. Then why does it feel like death? Veltar asked quietly. Dr. Quilthax had been studying the technical data from the convergence matrix. The quantum consciousness technology is beyond anything we currently understand. It would take us centuries to develop similar capabilities. If we reject their offer, we may be choosing to remain inferior. Inferior to what? Ancient Keeper Malthan asked. To beings who have chosen perfection over growth? To consciousness that has eliminated surprise, wonder, and discovery? Is that truly superiority? The debate might have continued forever, but it was interrupted by an announcement from the chamber's communication system. Incoming transmission from human space, the automated voice declared. Priority 1 diplomatic channel. The main screen flickered and Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared. She looked exactly the same as in the infiltration footage, but now she was addressing the entire Galactic Council directly. Distinguished representatives, she began with that perfect, empty smile. I trust your ambassadors have shared the details of Project Convergence with you. I am here to answer any questions and to formalize our offer to the galactic community. Zethkari, as current council president, found his voice first. Dr. Vasquez, we appreciate your directness, but many of us have concerns about the implications of your transformation. I understand, Dr. Vasquez replied. Change is always frightening, especially change as fundamental as this. But consider the alternative. Your current session has lasted 18 hours and resolved nothing. How much longer will you spend arguing about problems that the convergence could solve instantly? Commander Strix's feathers stood on end. Some problems are worth arguing about. Debate and disagreement lead to better solutions, do they? Dr. Vasquez asked. Your species has been debating the mining rights dispute in the Kepler sector for 6 months. The result has been military buildup and preparation for war. The convergence could resolve this conflict in minutes. By imposing a solution, Veltar objected, not by finding one that everyone can accept. The convergence would find a solution that incorporates all perspectives simultaneously, Dr. Vasquez explained. No voice would be silenced, no viewpoint ignored. The result would be optimal for all parties. Ancient Keeper Malthan leaned forward. And who would decide what optimal means? The collective consciousness of all participating species, Dr. Vasquez replied. Democratic decision-making enhanced by perfect information sharing and empathic understanding. Unit 9847 processed this concept rapidly. A hive mind democracy, fascinating. But what of individual rights and freedoms? Individual rights become collective rights, Dr. Vasquez said. Individual freedoms become collective freedoms. Nothing is lost except the limitations that prevent true cooperation. Dr. Quilthax clicked nervously. What if a species chooses not to join the convergence? Dr. Vasquez's expression didn't change, but somehow her words carried a subtle weight. That is, of course, their choice. The convergence will not force participation. However, Non-participating species should understand that we will be unable to provide the assistance and mediation that humanity once offered. The threat was polite, but unmistakable. Join the convergence or face the galaxy's problems alone. Ripple's ethereal form blazed with sudden anger. You're holding the galaxy hostage. Either we become like you or we lose access to human knowledge and technology. We are offering the galaxy a gift, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly. The gift of unity, efficiency, and peace. If some choose to reject this gift, we cannot force them to accept it. But neither can we pretend that individual consciousness is equal to collective consciousness. Equal in what way? Ancient Keeper Molthan asked. In capability and wisdom, in the ability to solve complex problems, Dr. Vasquez explained. Individual consciousness is a beautiful first step in the evolution of awareness. But it is only a first step. Kesahari shifted colors rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. What about creativity? What about the unexpected? What about the joy of discovering something entirely new? The convergence creates on a scale that individual minds cannot imagine, Dr. Vasquez said. As for discovery, we are exploring realms of consciousness that individual awareness cannot even perceive. But is it still human discovery? Veltar asked quietly. For the first time, Dr. Vasquez hesitated. The pause was brief, but everyone noticed it. We are still human, she said finally. We are simply more than human. Ancient Keeper Molthan stood again, her ancient eyes fixed on the screen. That is what they all said. The species that chose evolution over existence. They all believed they were becoming more than what they were. Perhaps they were right, but they also became less than what they could have been. Dr. Vasquez's image flickered slightly, as if the transmission was being processed through multiple sources. You have 48 hours to consider our offer. After that time, we will assume that non-responding species have chosen to remain individual. We will respect that choice and withdraw from galactic affairs permanently. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Zethkari looked around at the assembled representatives. 12 species, each unique, each struggling with the same impossible choice. Evolution or independence, unity or individuality, perfection or growth. We need to vote, he said finally. The next 24 hours saw the most intense lobbying in galactic history. Species representatives consulted with their home worlds, debated among themselves, and agonized over a decision that would determine the future of consciousness itself. Some, like the Machine Collective, were drawn to the efficiency and logical perfection of the convergence. Others, like the morph species, were repelled by the idea of fixed consciousness. The ethereal saw it as death of the soul. The crystalline beings from Helix Prime found it philosophically attractive but practically terrifying. When the final vote was called, the result was closer than anyone had expected. 7 species voted to reject the human offer. 5 voted to accept it. Dr. Vasquez's final transmission was brief and polite.